So yes, I'm Matt Griscom, and some of you that have been coming to this club for a while know that I've presented on meta automation a few times before, and this time is much better. A lot of new material, although the basic content is the same. As Joe mentioned, yes, I have a new book I published this morning. I don't have any hard copies. If I did, I'd give one to Joe. Probably Brian too. But it's more than a book. It needs to be a book, but it's more than just a book, and I'll cover that too. So, power switch. So it's introductory material, and I'm going to put out some questions to guide thinking about this material in terms of what do we really value about what we're doing, what's important to the team. What's broken about current practices, the low Earth orbit view, the high-level view of what it is I'm doing, and then the patterns view. So the meta-automation pattern language and the patterns within it, how they fit together. One pattern in particular that everybody here does, and we use it all the time. Practices. Fits with practices that you all know about. A little bit about code. The answers to those questions in light of what meta-automation tells us about what we could do better for software quality and the future, things to do. So meta-automation is not a tool you can buy. It's not a fad. It's not going away. It is a big investment intellectually and in terms of engineering. And it's got a huge return in terms of the business value, which is why I argue this screen doesn't reflect. Okay, it's not a fad because the value is solid. It's about getting information back from our system under test that tells us what's going on. And there's a lot of business value there. There's a lot of business value, and that's the basic goal of the meta-automation pattern language, is to show this is the really cool value, what you can do to ship software faster and at higher quality. So the questions to start with is the team on track? And by team, I mean a generic team, software development team. Are they on track to ship high-quality software within the schedule? Is QA on it? Is QA, or the QA role, supplying the tools that they need to communicate and measure the quality fast enough to stay on track? Is the quality visible to different roles and across geographies? Are the notifications focused rather than notifications that just go to everybody that could possibly care about what's going on with the automation? They can be focused to specific people, and they can have specific information in them too that helps people follow up, even they don't have to reproduce the problem because all the information is there. So test automation is broken, and I really like to say test automation because I'm trying to retire that term. It all comes down to linguistic relativity, for one thing. Who knows what linguistic relativity is? Linguistic relativity is basically, it's the idea that the words we use, the phrases, to describe a concept influence how we think about that concept. And so test automation has a problem of, well, there's test, we know what test is, and we know what automation is. But if we put them together, we're supposed to automate this, right? No, it doesn't work. Testing is, and there's Glenford Myers from 1979. I've ragged on him before. Here it is again. Testing is a process of executing a program with the intent of finding errors, meaning they're looking for bugs. And I've told this to many people when I discovered this, and they said, I don't think Glenford really meant that. I mean, I know he did. He goes on for pages. He goes on for pages and describes in a dozen different ways that if you're trying to verify correct behavior in a product, he says, no, that's a waste of time. Instead, you have to just look for bugs, and then the behavior correctness will follow. He's very explicit about that. And this is 1979, so it was highly influential because it's a long time ago. Interesting that I think he was, practically speaking, almost correct in 1979. But today, it's very much out of whack with reality. It just doesn't work. You can't just look for bugs. Because you have to verify requirements too, which becomes a problem for the automation now, because with conventional practices, the way you get information back from the product, really the code that's driving the product and the product itself, is with log statements. And log statements are ideal for product instrumentation, for long-running processes, and they're simple and they're lightweight, they're familiar, and we've all used them. But unfortunately, they're inadequate for time-bound procedures, not always multi-step, but often multi-step, quality measurements done by non-shipping code. And the non-shipping is important here because the performance isn't nearly as important. We have plenty of computing power. It's increasingly cheap and ubiquitous. If we're shipping code, we do have to measure about performance quite a lot. But for code that we're not shipping, we can do some cool stuff. We can do much better, and log statements just don't work. They have lost context because all they are is a timestamp and some other information. And if you want to join it with other log statements, you put in a GUID, some identifier. You can link it up. It's kind of kludgy, and I've seen it done with good effect, but for procedures of measuring the product, we have to do better. Output is brittle to analyze if you try to do it with automation or manually, because it's just a list of log statements. This is what you end up with if you have log statements and that's it. That's all you know about what's going on in the product. And you might have keywords for keyword-driven automation, but really, effectively, you don't know what's going on behind those keywords unless you don't go to the code. Then you get this, because you don't really know, all you can say, if a check passes, then it passed. And that's it. You don't know anything else. And so the team says, oh, okay, that's good, and we're not going to worry about this anymore. That's all you do. But if you accept the idea that how the product is driven and the performance of each step and the points of failure and repeating that, all that is important information, then it really looks more like this when the automation just can't keep up. Even if you had wall-to-wall log statements, you're still going to lose context and data, and it's still going to be hard to parse. So you have to do something different if you want to take advantage of the significant business value for that you've got there. So conventionally, most or almost all of this information is dropped on the floor. How the system is driven, how it's measured, the perf at each step performance, and how the steps fit into the check. So meta-automation saves all that information in a format that supports smart retry, automated triage. Those are two of the patterns in meta-automation, and an interactive quality portal where anybody can access exactly what's going on in the product. So this is the meta-automation pattern map as it currently stands. Note two things. At the lower part here, there's a mark the technology-facing interface. And so this is the automation driving the product and getting the information back. Up here is a business-facing interface. So those are the people of the business, including the QA role, and the devs, and the POs, and people in the C-suite, and so on. So these interfaces are important because what's in between represents the quality automation problem space. And that is my replacement for test automation. It's called quality automation because it's more accurate, it is more suggestive of we can get a lot of value out of this, and it doesn't lead people to make bad decisions. Especially this pattern down here, hierarchical steps. That's the pattern that we all do. So I made up the name hierarchical steps. I wrote it down, I described the pattern. I did not invent the pattern. The pattern exists. It's simply how we solve problems or how we communicate them and how we think about them. Everybody does this. We're all doing it in the room right now. What we can do is apply this towards automation driving the product and get information out that is very powerful for the automation, more automation. We can do really cool stuff that's in this pattern map. So it fills the quality automation problem space, and the set of patterns, though, is not fixed. As I mentioned, it's changing. It's going to grow. And I can't do this alone. So in my book, I invite people to join one of two communities, for example, on LinkedIn, where I invite people to contribute and help me, or contribute to the community, work together. I want to be, back myself away from this, but what other patterns can we put in there? Because we can have a much better understanding of the quality automation problem space than what we have now. Much more effective at shipping software. So meta-automation complements the CI and CD that we're going to hear from later from Joy and Leonard. A/B testing, and Alan Page has talked about that a lot here. but you still need to make sure that the product meets requirements before you ship it. You don't want to break customers. Manual test. The manual testers can do all the fun stuff. They don't have to do test cases. And with analytics, you can reuse that or pre-use that, the instrumentation, with their quality automation. Now you have a place to put all that information because the check has a structure and how it fits together. So automating manual test cases. You don't have to do that anymore. Running checks manually. No, you don't, because you know exactly what the check does. You don't have to check up on it, so to speak. Keyword automation, and if it doesn't find bugs, don't bother. Has anybody else heard this? Because I've heard that from a boss, yeah. Joe's heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the idea that your automation has to find bugs, even if it's repeatable automation. No, it's not about finding bugs. The meta automation means that nobody needs to ask QA, what's going on with this check? Or do you feel good about your automation? Or what does your automation miss? Because we know the first and the last. And the second one, I'll more on that in a second. There are open source samples available. They're linked on metaautomation.net, but they're served on GitHub. They're in C#. Mostly, they are a Visual Studio solution, but if you switch the services out, you can make it the whole thing platform independent, because it's C#. C# will run on a lot of different platforms. And the Visual Studio extension, and it'll get easier in the future. So to revisit those questions, the team knows it's on track because they have all the information to tell them exactly what the product is doing, exactly what the perf is, and exactly what the trends are over time with all that information. QA is on it because they're providing those tools. They're at the center now of the team. The quality is visible to everybody. Everybody can see what is going on with their product. And the QAs might tend to zoom down to the technology-facing level, but the PO, for example, might only zoom from the top level to the highest business-facing steps of the check. And so if they can see what the product is doing, and given that they could, in theory, drill down to the top technology-facing steps, they can see everything, and they have a very high, trustworthy view into what's going on, as do the devs. And the notifications are focused, because of their pattern. So the QA role can be the backbone of communication and collaboration to the team, because even across geographies and across roles. So I would suggest, first, know your requirements. You need business requirements and functional requirements. Consider your check design. The checks should be very simple and independent of all the other checks. And if you're ready to invest in shipping software faster and higher quality, look up meta automation. So my book's on Amazon now. At some future date, there will be a Kindle version. But for questions, do we have any time for questions? No, I deferred.
At the end.
At the end. Oh, okay. Oh, right. I will stick around and we can talk afterwards. If you have any questions, it does take a book and actually a lot more. I'll be starting up a blog as well when I restart my website. So you can find out more, and I'll stick around for questions afterwards. Also, if we go for beer someplace, I'll be there as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.